Welcome back to the Horse Racing Network with me, Izzy Phillips, and we're into our fifth and final day of our Punchestown Festival Freeview. As always, I am joined by racing broadcaster and journalist Paul Auster. Paul, day 5, the slog, we got there, we're at the end. We're going to have a look at a couple of potentially quite competitive looking grade ones on Saturday. Obviously, the coverage will be competing with the Guineas, so people do need to make sure they head over and have a little look at our Guineas preview. But other than that, are you looking forward to the Saturday at Punchestown?
I am, because, I'm sure you've got one or two things to say about this as well. This Mayor's Champion Hurdle.
Well, that's where we're going to start, I think, isn't it?
The 342 race on Saturday at Punchestown. 125,000 euros and 10 entries at the 5-day stage. But how many are going to turn up? And the big question, will Lossiemouth turn up? What do we think?
I'm shaking my head, Paul. I'm shaking my head because they've only gone and pulled her out of the champion hurdle again and left her in here, haven't they? And it's just infuriating because I think as a racing fan and as a real Lossiemouth stan, I think she's good enough. And I clearly feel that I know more than Willie Mullins or Rich Ritchie at this stage, but I think she's good enough. So I'm disappointed, as I'm sure many fans will be. But I know we were speaking about this a little bit. Is it because they have concerns that she's perhaps not on top of her game? That's why they're perhaps again opting for the easier race. But I get a bit upset for her legacy, because I really do just feel that, like anything can go wrong in any of these races. You also don't know how well Constitution Hill is going to turn up. I know Willie Mullins obviously does know the differential between State Man and Lossiemouth, and a couple of others that he's still got entered in that champion hurdle. But to me, Lossiemouth should have these lot beaten. So I can't understand it.
Well, I think what you said, it really is the nail on the head. She only beat Wadhu by 2 3/4 lengths at Aintree. Now, we know Wadhu is terrifically improved. But the fact is, did she win there despite not being on her A game? And if so, would you want to send her in against State Man and Constitution Hill? And I think that's what they've considered. Like you, I would have loved to have seen her have a crack at them, but maybe they're thinking to themselves, this isn't the right time. There's next season, there's plenty of opportunities, and if the mare's maybe just a little bit tight, she may not even turn up at all. We don't know. But if she does, I think even if she's 10 pounds below her best, she's going to be very hard to beat. That is assuming, of course, that brighter days ahead. From here, instead of going for the champion hurdle earlier in the week, I think they'll go for the champion. So if neither of those two were to turn up, then all of a sudden this race is blown wide open, isn't it?
Yeah, you have still got that double entry there for Cargizi as well, as the only other one. And like you say, that I bet they'll be playing cards close to their chest depending who runs in that champion hurdle.
Yeah, I think so. And I think there's a lot of juggling going to be going on. I think we could see, quite a small field for this race, maybe 4 or 5 runners. But there might be a few that are left in the race because connections think, look, this is really good prize money. If only 4 or 5 turn up and I manage to nick third for, 11 or 12,000 euros, then it's well worth turning up. So it is a difficult race to assess. Jade de Grugy, another one, July Flower potentially. That might run, but I think we're probably both agreed if Lossiemouth turns up in the absence of brighter days ahead, then she probably will win, even if she isn't at her very best.
I think, say they did both, meaning they both, Lossiemouth and brighter days ahead, say they did both dodge the champion hurdle, I would be completely fuming, because I really feel, Gordon, if you're listening and you've got her entered in both, leave her in the champion. She might have a better day. You never know. But if they did both turn up here, I would also quite like to see the Lossiemouth brighter days ahead showdown, to be honest with you. So it still could end up a reasonable race, but it's a lot of flip-flopping, isn't it? If neither of them run here, then yeah, I'd lean into whether you're going to get Cargizi or Jade de Grugy. So A
A tough
couple.
race to call. It's a tough
It
race to
is
call.
really hard, actually,
I
and
think it's
potentially quite political.
yeah, it's a sit back and see race. You know, Willie Mullins has got plenty of entries, but and of course the ground is another thing. If it stays dry all week, is he? As
Mm,
it's set to be fairly dry, I think certainly in the first 3 or 4 days of the festival, it
yeah.
could be pretty quick ground, and there'll be a lot of trainers saying, "Look, it's the end of the season. I don't want my mare
Yeah.
to have to, get jarred up, and let's just call it quits." So who knows? It could be an opportunity for something to step up that we haven't considered too seriously and grab themselves some proper prize money. We'll see.
And then following this one, Paul, at 4:50, we've got the Ballymore Champion 4-year-old hurdle. So younger horses when you're talking about the national hunt here.
Mm.
There's some very, very interesting runners, even including the likes of Lulamba for Nikki Henderson, who we saw at the Lambourne Open Day, actually. So it's nice when you sort of met them and they go and run.
Yeah.
But you've also got in here the likes of Hello Neighbour and the horse that spoiled the party for everybody in that triumph with Poneros. So could be quite a competitive race, this one. Has anyone sort of catching your eye where you think, oh, actually, if they run there, I think that you could have a great chance?
Yeah. Well, again, we come back to the thing about the end of the season and whether horses are getting tired, they've been on the go a while. Pony Ross, of course, he popped up on his first run over hurdles. He'd been off for, what was it, 6 or 7 months when he won the triumph. It was an extraordinary defeat of Lulamba. But do you think he can do it again? Can lightning strike twice? I'm not sure. Lulamba is certainly a very, very classy horse, and I think I'd fancy him to potentially get his revenge over Ponyros. But one horse that I've been quite impressed by, even though he didn't run his race at Cheltenham, but he's bounced back in really good style, is Blue Lemons, another one of Willie Mullins, who was a pretty decent horse on the flat, rated nearly 100 on the flat. He was probably a higher rated horse than Ponyros when I come to think about it, actually. He's probably a rated £7 better horse on the flat than Ponyros. Didn't run his race at Cheltenham after winning on his hurdles bow. And then he won really comfortably at Fairyhouse just 12 days ago. Now, if he does turn out again, I think Blue Lemons could be a really interesting contender to serve it up to both Pony Ross and Lulamba. Well, Hello Neighbour, as you mentioned, maybe went a little bit too free, I think,
Mm.
in the Triumph Hurdle.
He
Um,
was there, wasn't he? Just faded.
Odds, yeah, he just did a little bit too much too early. If he's ridden a little bit more conservatively, but his jumping is also a little bit tricky sometimes. Hello, neighbour. He got away with it a couple of times at Leopardstown, I think it was, but we'll have to see. But I think Blue Lemons could be a decent price if he shows up.
Yes, I'm leaning towards Lulamba,
Yeah,
just to stick because I think he's got a lot of ability. It's hard to know. Obviously, they're only four. It's hard to know how fluky that Poneros run was.
yeah,
Like you say, he hasn't run since though, so he has had a nice break. And you've got to say that race, how easy was it for him? You know, will it be running the same style again? Will he be able to kind of come and take people at the finish? Will they have learned their lessons, like you say, the likes of Hello Neighbour, and just race a little more conservatively? So there might be a few more in the finish this time than when Poneros kind of took advantage of how that race had been run. So you'd like to think that a few lessons had been learned from that Triumph hurdle, and that's where I would probably stick with Lulamba. Again, it's unlikely to be Nico de Boinville on board, so probably another one there for James Bowen. I mean, at least it's potentially worth missing his brother's stag do in Tenerife for, eh?
yeah, yeah. If he shows up, you know that he means business. That's for sure. If we suddenly get a late jockey change, we know that the Lumber isn't quite as well fancied as we thought he was. But
Oh, yeah.
I think Lumber will go. Just to make the other counterpoint, though, as regards Ponyros, that we were saying, the others might have learnt how to ride against him. But the other point, of course, as well, is that was his first ever run. He may well have improved for it because it was his
Yeah.
first run. We really don't know. So there's a lot of question marks. Um, but they're both two lovely horses for next season. And I think Blue Lemons also is a horse, as long as it's not too fast. I don't think he'd want really, really lovely, fast ground. Be nice if there were one or two little showers along the way heading into the
Yeah.
weekend.
And I would say, actually, I think that that's one thing that might benefit the likes of Poneros and potentially Lulamba. Obviously, they both did run incredibly well at Cheltenham. And by the Friday, that ground had dried out at Cheltenham as well because there was no rain. So potentially a dry Punchestown could almost go in their favour because you could get very, very similar ground conditions. So that's something to keep an eye on for sure. But two, I think, quite interesting and competitive races to finish off our Punchestown Festival preview. Thank you so much for sticking with us for the whole marathon. We hope you get plenty of winners and we do wish you the best of luck. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you're interested in the flat, head over to see our Guineas preview as well.